Hello, hello. This is, oh shoot. No, we have to stop. Look, we didn't fix our names.
Oh gosh.
Okay, so
Yes.
here we are. My name is Bethany Woodard.
And my name is Yasmine Sherif.
This is podcast number 1 of The Alchemists, and we are here with monthly reoccurring episodes to be released on YouTube, having important conversations, timely conversations around humanity, meaning, and transformation. Yasmine and I linked up last year in a weird universe based on a book that she wrote called The Case for Humanity. And here we are now. We'll get to those stories later. Um, Again, my name is Bethany. I am an author. I have 2 books. One is a memoir called I Might Regret This. Lots of true stories there, all written very chaotically about my life and childhood and family and upbringing. And then I wrote a book in 2023 called The Journey to Expansion, which includes a near-death experience and what ended up being some version of a spiritual awakening. Yasmine, I'd love to hear your books.
Thank you. First of all, Bethany, I have to say, I read your book.
Yeah.
I might regret this on stretch. I couldn't put it down. It's a serious book, but you also have a great sense of humor in the way you were recalling all that chaos.
Yeah.
So I went between sort of crying and laughing and deja vu, and I can relate to that. But it's such a great book, and I know it's on Amazon, and I think it's such an amazing book. You're a good author.
Thank
And
you.
I have your second, and I'm about to start with that. Well, I wrote my first book 10 years ago called The Case for Humanity, an Extraordinary Session. And I launched it at the UN here in New York, and it's been a bestseller at the UN bookstore ever since. This was my first book, and I was working out there in, I was based in countries of conflict. It's difficult to manage publishers and get all of that done, but I found through a good friend of mine, a great publisher in Bethlehem, Mitri Raheb, and he took a liking to the book and taught me a lot about publishing books. So now I'm together with Scott Tavis. I'm a co-author. We just signed a contract with our US publisher for Unleash Your Humanity, Driven to Become, Inspired to Serve, which is partly a memoir and partly a manifesto, but it's about humanity, meaning, purpose, and how we evolve through life.
Yeah, I have to say, because I've obviously read both of your books. Your first one is How I Found You. And to let people know a little bit about what that looks like, it's as if in a perfect world, these amazing poets and philosophers and scientists descend on the UN and want to create a beautiful utopian world, and what that looks like and what the conversations have to look like in order for those things to occur. And then moving into this book that you're publishing this fall that I got to read in advance, I was thrilled to find out that that a lot of our upbringing, even though they were different, they were quite similar in some of the meaning that came out of our life experiences and how unique they were. But your ability to write about your experience in real live time when you were living in other parts of the country and actively working with the UN, being able to bring in the poet voice and the philosopher's voice and the humanist voice from all of these people who've already been before us and had all of the wisdom, and using those types of conversations in real-time conflict to speak to the human, past the gun or past the weapon, right? I just thought your story was so inspiring. I can't wait for everyone to read it. So, and it's highly needed right now with where we are in humanity, which is also what we're meant to speak more about.
Well, I can say, as we kickstarted our discussion about humanity, and which is also part of the humanity brand that we are working on together with Scott and others want to join. It's becoming now quite sort of attractive to many. But I think one book that really set me off when I was young is this book, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
I have
And
a copy. My copy is a little more
I
new.
don't know a single person who's looking for meaning in life that hasn't read this book.
I know.
I think it's probably one of the most well-read books in the world. And he wrote it in 10 days after he came out from the concentration camps in 1945. But he came up with something called the Code of Meaning.
The Code of Meaning?
Yeah, the Code of Meaning.
Okay.
So how do you take pain and transform that into beauty? Or the ugly and transform it into beauty? How do you take testings and transform it into victories? How do you bring darkness and transform it into light? And there's so many examples of that. I have seen it both in many of the countries that I have worked over the past 3 decades, but I've also seen it in our history, through historical personalities. It's everywhere, but it's a potential that is inside us.
Right.
And I call that potential the power of humanity. Because when we reach that potential, we become what we say coherent. Mind, heart, and soul is all aligned.
Right.
Within us, and then that's aligned with the universe. So you untap incredible potentials that go far beyond how we would normally traditionally define a potential. And to end here, just to say that it's so important that we bring this topic to the world today, because everyone is saying, where's humanity? What's happening to the world? And I don't think it's the first time in history. I think history goes through the Dark Ages, Enlightenment and Renaissance and so forth. It's a pattern. But we are now
in that moment.
We are in that moment. Definitely.
We are in that moment. I know we say this all the time, right? Now is the time. We don't have any more time. Now is the time.
Yeah.
What do we want to say about, the idea that meaning, and Viktor Frankl saw meaning not as a luxury, but as a survival function, and that it preserves identity. The idea that in the worst of circumstances, what is that famous line he has, right? One who has identified their why can
live through
survive almost anyhow, right? Or the idea that, like, as long as you have your meaning, you have your purpose, you have this thing inside of you, you prevent that cognitive collapse, which moves into helplessness. And so the idea is to keep that agency about you. As soon as you have a choice over what your suffering is or what your suffering means, you now have the capacity or the tools to try and get yourself, if not out of that situation, at least have the choice of attitude over that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everything has to do with our perceptions, right?
Right.
So let's say you can determine in your mind whether this is, you can either make a very subjective decision, this is so bad for me, it's so painful, or you can say this is happening for a meaning and I'm going to figure out what that meaning is, and then I'm going to learn from it, because then you come out much stronger. And I think it's important for us to know, and life isn't fair. It is not fair. We're never going to get complete fairness, but we can try to do as much as we can to be just and be honest and be ethical and to live with purpose for others, not just for ourselves. But I think that when we can see how something that would be perceived as negative actually helps us squeeze more beauty, more strength out of that nasty little thing, our whole perception changes. Solzhenitsyn was a great Russian author. He said, when I laid there, I think he was in Siberia in prisons. He was in opposition. He was an author. He said, when I lay there bare on the straw carpet, with nothing, I realized this is a blessing to me, because it's now how I learn about myself and life. You see, you take it as that.
Right.
rather than saying, I feel so sorry for myself, I don't know what to do. And the people do that for the smallest little thing. And it really holds them back from becoming very, very powerful people.
Yeah.
But you've got to do something for others. That's why humanity is important. It's not just about self-growth, like I need to grow and I have to be strong and I have to show the world how strong I am. No, I have to soften my heart.
Yeah.
With my
Empathy,
heart,
right?
I can see the meaning.
Yeah.
Then I just tell my brain, this is the meaning, and you listen to me now, brain. The brain doesn't tell the heart tells the brain.
Right. Yeah. This I know. I have this idea that like meaning is neutral until you assign something to it. The same we talk about, you know, your perspective, your cognition. Everything that happens to us is always going to be filtered through our own lens and our own experience. And so I can assign meaning where I see fit. Even just the ability to assign meaning to something means that I still have a choice, which if I still have a choice, then I have agency. And if I have agency, I still have ownership over who I am, right? The thing is, I think people, when you're on that, when you're in survival mode, which I think a lot of people are right now, and that's by way of the system doing what it's doing, it's hard to feel like you have the time or the luxury to think of self-actualization and what meaning is. But oftentimes it's when we're at our worst and what we would call survival mode, that death of the ego or the death of the soul does have to happen so that something new can be birthed out of that, that meaning can be created out of that.
It's beautifully said, Bethany. I mean, let me tell our listeners that Bethany is also a poet. I was an amateur poet when I was younger, but she's a real poet. I think you said it. And I think you said it in a very clear way. It's when we see the meaning in something and we use it as fuel, because there will be pain. You can feel pain, but instead of succumbing to that pain, you take it as a fuel.
Right.
And once you see the meaning and you start advancing and you connect the dots, you become grateful. And this comes back to what you said, that once you know the why,
you can bear almost anyhow.
You can bear anyhow, and you become grateful.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful this happened to me.
Yeah.
Often we don't do it when we're in the middle of it.
Right.
But the more we train our mind and rewire the neurons in our mind to think that way, the easier it becomes not only to live, but to serve and help others and to live with authentic joy. Not a joy that is dependent on what other people think and say and ranks and titles, but a joy that just spreads from within you because you feel that you can do anything. And sometimes I say to myself, you know what, I can do that. No one has ever done that before. I can do it. And you know what, I can do it. I wanted to be in through hell, so not afraid of anything. You know?
That comes with its own set of problems because I have that complex sometimes where I think anything is possible, and then I start moving down that pathway and I'm like, uh-oh, wait a minute, there are challenges in the way. But the beauty of thinking anything is possible is that you run in that direction. Hopefully it's a direction of social good and humanity, right? That's where I try to spend my energy.
But that's what you do. And I think that is what makes a difference. Because if you choose a direction that is purely selfish and it's just for me or my closest, somewhere along the line, you lose purpose.
Yeah.
Because you're disconnected from the rest of the world and humanity. But if you run down the road with a good intention and you're aware, awareness is very important.
Right.
Of that intention in your heart. Doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes. But if you do that and you're constantly observing yourself, for like the old ancient Greeks said, know thyself. You know. Then, and you accept what happened, you took that pain, you processed it, you come out as a rocket on the other side. You reinvent yourself and you shoot even higher than you were before, and you help even more people. And it's not about just helping, they're helping us as well. We're actually all helping each other in different ways.
Yeah.
But I think when you find that a meaning, and this is what Frankl says in his book, that people do suffer. I mean, everyone will suffer. No one is going to go through life without suffering. It comes in different shapes and forms. But when you, through reflection, through meditation, through reading, through learning, understand the reason, all of that turns into a blessing in disguise. And suddenly, you don't suffer anymore. It just, and that's what Frankl says, the suffering goes away. It just goes away.
Because if you think about that raw fuel, right? That idea that it can become a sacred rage that compels you and creates energy or momentum towards change, towards revolution, towards impact, towards all kinds of things, right? It's up to us to be intentional and have empathy and have a pure heart so that we're moving in the right direction. But the idea that suffering creates almost like this, like you said earlier, that just that generative force where if someone has meaning, now all of a sudden they're thinking through what would future state look like. And I think that's the other beauty of what Frankl's book talks often about is we are creating our stories in real time. We are the authors of our stories. And so if you don't like your story, rewrite the story. Your brain does not know the difference, in fact, right? Like it will believe any story you tell it. And so he talks about that idea of being able to use suffering to rewrite the narrative and rewrite the story so that at least it works for you. Like if you're going to write it, at least write one that works for you, right?
I totally agree with you. And I think it is clear, though many people don't know this, but we are the creators of our lives.
Right.
We determine. And the more we learn about, Man's Search for Meaning is an excellent book to understand the meaning of everything. But the more we learn and the more we learn about our relationship to universe and that we are energy, the universe is energy, we are not just randomly left here, and have both faith, compassion and empathy, clarity of the heart and the mind, and determination and perseverance to find answers.
Yeah.
I think we can become even greater creators. And I want to give an example of what it looks like.
Okay.
And I'll just take an historical example, as you know. So, for instance, for me, one of the greatest composers ever lived was Ludwig van Beethoven. I just love his music.
Beethoven?
Yeah. And he was a man of rage.
Yeah.
You mentioned the word rage, and I think it's important here that emotions are a broad spectrum.
Right.
No one can run away from anger. It's going to come.
Yeah.
It's how you convert that.
Yes.
So he, of course, he grew up difficult, and his father was very harsh on him, and he started composing music. And then what happens, which is the worst that can happen to a composer, he loses hearing. He's deaf. He's stone deaf when he writes his last big symphony, Ode to Joy, which is literally bringing humanity together. Yeah. That's the morale of that symphony. And he invented ways of hearing the music without having hearing aids, because he had to squeeze it out. And so he had some, I don't know, some sort of metal, whatever.
Like a rod?
Yeah, metal rod that he put against his body.
Oh, to hear the vibration.
Yeah, and it vibrated in the bones.
Yeah.
He could feel the music. I mean, that's ingenious.
But he found a way.
He found a way, but not only that, because he suffered. Because it cannot be a greater suffering for a musician not to be able to hear your music.
Yeah.
Because he suffered so much, and he had so much beauty inside him, combined with that anger, he became so perseverant, so convinced. And it's like you take a lemon and he just squeezed all that juice out of it and gave us beauty that is immortal.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think, speaking about artists, I think if many artists are creating their word as they see it, and that's the beauty of artists.
Yeah.
But I think there is art that comes straight raw, fresh from that anger, and then there's art that has processed through learning, and it comes out differently. It does come out differently. But I don't think anything great was created in the comfort zone.
Right. That we know.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. All growth happens outside of the comfort zone. That's for sure.
Yes.
This we know.
Yeah.
That'll be we should remind ourselves to make that a topic one day.
Absolutely.
About growth
Get out
coming
of the
outside of the
comfort zone.
zone.
Take a quantum leap, because
Yes.
that's another thing is the fear.
Yeah.
There's so much fear to take leaps in this world,
Right.
or calculated risks,
Right.
or step out of the line, or pursue your
Fear
dream.
can feel paralyzing, but when people talk about bravery, I tell people, look, even for people who are brave, it's not that fear is non-existent. We just move anyway. We just
Yes.
don't let it paralyze us. It's not that
Yes.
we're not afraid. You
Yes.
can be brave and still be afraid.
Absolutely. I can so relate to that. I think I relate to everything you say, but it's true. There's
Yeah.
the fear, and you have two choices. Either go with the fear,
Right.
or go with your dream.
Yeah, I know.
And the dream becomes the purpose. And whatever happens, like you and I have discussed how suffering ceases when you see the meaning. Let's say you have a dream, you want to achieve something, and every door is closed, every door. I mean, I've learned through life that I count, okay, that door closed, that closed, that. That's great. I'm getting closer to the open door now. The more doors are closing, the closer I'm getting to the open door.
Right.
And you know what? And then if there is no open door, I will build one.
I know. I was just like, I'll cut it out myself.
Yeah, okay. That's how we operate. And you know, every human being can do that.
Yeah.
But it needs identity, agency, and it needs to understand the meaning behind all the testings that are sent your way to become that person. If you constantly run away and because you're so scared of danger, you will never really
there's one tiny mechanism here
deliver yourself.
Sorry, I missed it at the end.
You will never deliver yourself to the world.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right.
At every turn you turn away because you're scared.
Yeah. What I was thinking though too is this is all cyclical. It's not like it's a one-time event that happens. Life is about these cycles of there's going to continue to be a challenge that comes your way. Even when you get over one, you'll loop back around and it'll be it might be the same challenge, but a different level of the same challenge. But the idea is that you continue to build, and part of that impermanence around life and its cycles can be a force that, even though you're fearful of the unknown, when you recognize this is just part of what's going to continue to happen anyway, I just have to get on board and ride the wave, it can make it easier to step in, because it's not like it's one cliff you're jumping off of. You recognize that this is just the cycle of life and death and rebirth, and I'm going to keep doing this, and I have to learn to be flexible and adapt. I'm going to get a lesson or a teaching or meaning out of each one that comes.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And, you know, both you and I are mothers of two children. Mine are slightly older than yours, but yours are also growing fast. But my kids, they always tell me, if there's one thing you taught us, Mom, is that life is not linear.
Yeah.
It isn't.
It's not.
And the assumption that life is linear is not only naive, but you're going to hurt yourself so much if you assume that I just want to be born, live in a comfort zone. Maybe I need to put a little bit of effort there, but otherwise, please let everything be good. No, you're not going to grow. You're not going to become. You're not going to reach your potential. Everything is the metaphoresis. You say metaphoresis, yes? It's my string.
I say multi-dimensional, but I think it means
multi-dimensional.
But yeah, non-linear. What?
It's non-linear. I mean, and when you get a little bit older, you can look back and say, oh, I remember when that happened, and I was so worried, and then it worked out.
Yeah.
And the older you get more secure and confident that it isn't linear, but you can make it because you've done it before.
Yeah.
And I think I will hand over to you, but I think when it starts early in life, like for you and me, I think we have a head start.
Yeah.
It's a head start. You can look at this, oh, it's so premature. It shouldn't have happened. Or you can say, wow, what a head start we got in life.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
prepared us.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. We learned resilience from a very early age as a result of things that were outside of our control.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think I think we leave it here. I think we've said a lot. I think there's a lot of, I think the only thing I would add if we want is like, you know, if someone wanted to engage in this type of real-time self-questioning or introspection or call to action around purpose and meaning and what that looks like, obviously we would advise them to read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. But what would be something that people can do immediately to put these types of thought processes into action for them and really discover what meaning looks like for them, especially right now in a world where it's urgent?
I think journaling and writing
Yeah, for
down,
sure.
and preferably by hand, because it has a certain energy when you
Yeah.
use your handwriting.
Yeah.
But journaling,
Yeah.
and don't be afraid of facing what you don't want to face.
Right.
You know, Carl
It's a
Jung
safe
speaks,
space.
it's a safe space, and Carl Jung speaks about the subconscious and the consciousness.
Yeah.
And the subconscious is, I don't want to know about it. And then people live on reflexes on what's happening in the subconscious. Allow yourself to feel whatever you have been through in life, bring it up to the surface, because that's what Carl Jung says, and journal and look back and say, this happened when I was 10, when I was 15, when I was 25, and I made it. That's going to give you self-confidence as well.
Yeah.
So I think journaling, maybe also spirituality doesn't need to be dogmatic.
Right.
But don't forget that you have a soul.
Yeah.
Go look for it. Search the soul also,
Search
and
the
the
soul.
heart.
However that happens. Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be
Yeah.
dogmatic, for sure.
But there's so many avenues on this.
Right.
And of course, read our books. But I would say for the future, we are going to share our podcast once a month.
Yes.
And today we discussed meaning, and we have on the agenda leadership, courage,
Yeah.
faith, creativity. And we hope
Alchemy.
that, pardon?
Alchemy.
Alchemy is the red thread for everything we do.
I know.
We are here to inspire. We are here to inspire. So welcome and thank you for being with us.
Yes, thank you so much, and see you again next time.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.